Hey guys, I want to go over this article that was put out way back in 2017 by the Huffington Post. I actually saved a copy on my computer. You never know how you're going to use these documents. I have quite a few on my computer, but this one is entitled 7 Ways That You, Yes You, Could End Up on a Terrorist Watch List. Now, in this document, it actually goes over 7 ways that intelligence agencies actually submit names to the watch list database. It starts out reading there at the top. Early this week, The Intercept published a 166-page document outlining the government's guidelines for placing people on an expansive network of terrorist watch lists, including the no-fly list. In their report, Jeremy Ryan highlighted the extremely vague and loosely defined criteria developed by 19 federal agencies supposedly to fight terrorism. Using these criteria, the government officials have secretly characterized an unknown number of individuals as threats or potential threats to national security. In 2013 alone, 468,749 watch list nominations were submitted to the National Counterterrorism Center. It rejected only 1% of the recommendations. Now, that's quite a number for just 1 year. And this is the reason why I said there are large groups of individuals who are benefiting from terrorist watch lists or terrorism, or I should say people that are nominated for the terrorism watch list. Anytime you have that many nominations coming up in 1 year, that's for a reason. And it's not because they're really fighting terrorism. All right, let's look at the first one. Number 1, again, this comes from the Huffington Post, 2017. Number 1, it says you could raise reasonable suspicion that you are involved in terrorism. Irrefutable evidence or concrete facts are not required. It says this guideline addresses how to place people on terrorist screening database or TSDB, of which the no-fly lists and the selectee lists, which covers those selected for enhanced screening before boarding flights, are both subsections. You know, the reason why I'm actually doing this is because of the hearings that are going on, the FISA 702 hearings regarding the abuse of intelligence gathering by the F-boys. I'm going to be going through the actual document that was published by the court. It was declassified, and it's going to be at the end of this video. But I thought I'd bring out this Huffington Post article to kind of demonstrate how these powers were being abused. Again, this is Huffington Post. It goes on to read, in determining whether a suspicion about you is reasonable, a nominator must rely upon articulable intelligence or information which, taken together with rational inferences from those facts, can link you to possible terrorism. As Cahill and Devereux noted, words like reasonable, articulable, and rational are not expressly defined. While the document outlines the need for an objective factual basis, the next section clarifies that irrefutable evidence or concrete facts are not necessary to make a final determination as to whether a suspicion is reasonable. So how could intelligence officials be led to put you on a watch list? And that is an obvious question, right? Number 2, you could post something on Facebook or Twitter that raises reasonable suspicion. Number 3, someone else could just think that you're a potential terror threat. It says the guidelines also consider the use of walk-in or write-in information about potential candidates for the watch list. Nominators are encouraged not to dismiss such tips and, after evaluating the credibility of the source, could opt to nominate you to the watch list. So, you know, they're taught to not even ask questions about nominations. And that's really unfortunate. And I do believe that that is the reason why they're having these FISA 702 hearings now, as to whether or not they're going to sunset the whole FISA 702, subsection 702, or whether or not it's going to be revised and reformed. I personally see the reason why it needs to be totally abolished, because it's being abused. And you can see that by this document that was put out, or this article that was put out by the Huffington Post. Okay, number 4. Again, this is the 4th reason, according to Huffington Post, how you could end up on a terrorist watch list. It says you could be a little terrorist, or at least according to someone. It reads, the document explains that you could be put on a suspected terrorist watch list if you are determined to be a representative of a terrorist group, even if you have neither membership in nor association with the organization. Individuals accused of being involved in a terrorist organization, but who later are acquitted in a court of law or saw their charges drop, are still potential nominees for watch listing, so long as reasonable suspicion is established. You notice how these reasons, they become more and more vague. Number 4, then number 5. Notice what number 5 says, or you could just know someone terroristly, maybe. It's not what you know now, it's who you know. Number 6, and if you're in a category of people determined to be a threat, your threat status could be upgraded at the snap of a finger. So if you're considered to be a threat, your status could be upgraded at the drop of a hat. It says the watch list guideline explains a process by which the Assistant to the President for Homeland Security and Counterterrorism can move an entire category of individuals to an elevated threat status. It's unclear exactly how these categories are defined, but according to the document, there must be current and credible intelligence information suggesting that the group is a particular threat to conduct a terrorist act. Such determination can be implemented and remain in place up to 72 hours before a committee convenes to decide whether the watch list upgrade should be extended. And then finally, number 7, you could just be unlucky. I mean, this was put out by the Huffington Post, guys. And I mean, it was actually organized in 2014, but it was updated in 2017 and published. And I thought that this was interesting. So right around the time when this document came out at Huffington Post, I also noticed this, and I shared this before, but many of you remember I talked about the F-Boys website, how they were at one point advertising for surveillance careers, surveillance professionals. They were looking for surveillance professionals, both domestic professionals and international surveillance professionals. And when you click on the link and you go to the listing, you'll notice at the top of the screen there, it says to keep the nation safe and to take on both domestic and international threats, the F-Boys relies on a constant stream of intelligence gathered by a team of surveillance professionals. So I believe this is the reason why we're having or seeing the FISA 702 hearings. And at the end of this year, December 31st, the FISA program is due to set or to be revised. I really hope they consider doing away with the program. So that is the reason why this declassified document came out. This document came out entitled Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court. This was declassified in 2021. You can see why it was declassified, because these intelligence tools have been abused for so long. It starts out reading there, this order responds to compliant problems regarding the F-Boys querying of unminimized information obtained under the FISA Act, Section 702, which concerns electronic surveillance, and on the next page, physical search, and Title V of FISA 702, which concerns the production of business records and other tangible things, right? So there are actually 3, as I read it in this document, 3 reasons why it seems like the intelligence court is blowing the whistle on this whole FISA 702 intelligence gathering tool that the F-boys are using. It's being abused, and there are 3 reasons why it's being abused. I want to skip down to the middle part of the document here because they outline those 3 reasons. It says the government has characterized that standards as a high one, having 3 elements. 1, a query cannot be overly broad, but rather must be designed to extract foreign intelligence information or evidence of a crime. Number 2, it must have an authorized purpose and not be run for personal or improper reasons. And number 3, there must be a reasonable basis to expect it will return foreign intelligence information or evidence of a crime. It says, but the querying standards illicitly stated that the applicable F-boys procedures did not include these 3 elements. So their querying procedures did not include the 3 elements as stated above. All right, I want to kind of skip through this document because it's 14 pages. I can't go through all 14 pages, but I do want to highlight certain points that I think are important to look at. This portion right here, standard minimization procedures for F-boys electronic surveillance and physical search conducted under FISA 702 subsection. It says there, in contrast, by the terms of the applicable procedures, F-boys querying of unminimized content or non-content, including metadata, acquired pursuant to 702 must be reasonably likely to retrieve foreign intelligence information as defined by FISA or evidence of a crime unless otherwise specifically accepted. Now, skipping down there, it says the F-boys has not consistently complied with the 3-part querying standard articulated by the government. In October 2018, the court concluded that the F-boys' repeated non-compliant queries of Section 702 information precluded findings that its Section 702 querying and minimization procedures as implemented satisfied the definition of minimization procedures and were reasonable under the 4th Amendment. All right, it says the government acknowledged that those improper queries generally resulted from fundamental misunderstandings about what the standard reasonably likely to return foreign intelligence information means. And the court cited the lack of a common understanding within the F-boys and the NSD, and that's actually the DOJ. NSD stands for the National Security Division of the Department of Justice. So you could say the DOJ, of what it means for a query to be reasonably likely to return information or evidence of a crime as contributing to the F-boys' non-compliance, right? And if you go through this document, I think I'm going to stop here, but if you go through this document, you can clearly see that there were a number of elements or number of areas where it just seemed that they blacked out some very important information. For example, notice this. It says one of the non-compliant queries discussed in the December 6, 2019 opinion provided further evidence of the lack of a common understanding of the querying standard between the F-boys and the NSD or the DOJ. In October 2019, the F-boys queried unminimized Section 702 information using identifiers of approximately 16,000 persons and they blacked it out. Now, these 16,000 people were not overseas. They were here in America. So why is it blacked out there? You'll notice that it's blacked out. It says the NSD assess those queries violated the querying standard except for the queries related to 7 persons with ties to a blank investigation. What investigation? Why is it blacked out? Now, they could say, well, it's blacked out because it's classified. Well, that's fine, but, there are individuals that are being queried here in America who are part of an investigation, and that investigation, whether it's classified or not, but it's actually, I can see why they would say it's violating the Fourth Amendment. Goes on to say the F-boys, however, maintained that all the queries were reasonably likely to return foreign intelligence information or evidence of a crime because blank, they blacked it out. So you can see how these three blacked out areas just on this one page alone, if it were not blacked out, it would show, I believe, important information. Now, you can see on all the other pages, there's blacked out information as well. When you go to page 6, all you have to do is read through there and you can see clearly that there's information that was blacked out that I believe would suggest that, these, intelligence tools are being abused. And it's for that reason that I believe there should be oversight. So I think it's important that we take notice of what's going on and specifically take notice of why these FISA 702 hearings are happening now. You notice at the end of this document, you can see the judge that signed this document back in September 21. This document is declassified, and the House Judiciary Subcommittee is right now holding hearings on the FISA reform. And I think this really affects every TI. Every targeted individual is directly affected by the outcome of this FISA reform.
Mr. Jordan.
Ms. Franklin, you testified you have no idea how many Americans are picked up in the incidental collection, and the FBI won't tell you or won't even give you an estimate what that number may be. Is that right?
That's correct.
And you have no idea the amount of data collected on American citizens, and the FBI won't tell you or give you an estimate on that either.
The intelligence agencies have asserted that it is infeasible for them to calculate a meaningful number, and they have not done so.
And then 10,000 people, approximately 10,000 people at the Justice Department have the ability to query this incidental collection database without any probable cause. And we know, as the ranking member of the full committee, Mr. Nadler, said earlier, there were 3.4 million queries of this database, and 30% of those were in error. Is that all right?
I don't have at my fingertips all of those numbers, but I do recall specifically the 3.4 million number of queries conducted in the prior calendar year.
And the solution is simple, right? Require probable cause if you're going to query this database on American citizens.
As I have stated, I urge Congress to require that the FISA court review those U.S. person query terms before they...
Ms. Williams, do you agree?
Well, Congressman, that's something that we're looking at right now. I think you put your finger on it, which is that you want to increase privacy and civil liberties as much as possible for U.S. persons. The pros of that is that it would make it harder to run a U.S. person search. The con of that is that it would make it harder to run a U.S. person search. And so there's a balance there.
Americans are being picked up in this incidental collection. We don't know the number. My guess is it's pretty darn big. They won't tell us. And without probable cause, that database is being searched 3.4 million times with all kinds of error rates, as Mr. Gates in his round of questioning determined earlier. How about if we just get the FBI out of the business altogether?
I think the question is,
what if the FBI can't query this database? You can't query it with, don't even mess with the problem. Just FBI can't query this database on American citizens.
Look, the FBI has a long way to go to regain public trust. And the question is, I think if the FBI is not doing these searches to figure out who in the United States is talking to terrorists abroad, who is going to do it? And so the concerns are real. And
who's going to do it? We got other agencies that do it already.
We do it well. We have agencies, but do you want to, there's a risk of turning the CIA or NSA who look inward on Americans, and we don't want to.
We're not allowed to do that.
Right.
CIA is not allowed to do that.
Exactly.
We're not going to change that.
Exactly.
No way. I mean, this committee. You guys are on the Privacy and Civil Liberties Board. That's what the main function of this committee, the Judiciary Committee, is to protect the Constitution, protect the bill. That's our fundamental responsibility. And 702 is up for reauthorization. This is the most important thing. We're probably going to do this Congress. Get this right. Not let it continue with the data that you all understand. That's our that's our focus, should be our focus. And the fact that I think we can get bipartisan, nonpartisan, we can get agreement here on protecting those liberties, I think is just so darn important. When's the report going to be ready? Many of you have referenced that. I think all three of you referenced it in your opening statements. When's that coming?
Not able to give you an exact date. We are working hard. There's a lot of complex information
Well,
at issue.
let me ask this question. Is it going to be ready before December 31st?
Yes.
Okay, that's important. And we're working on this now. I mean, I want to thank the chairman for calling this hearing. This is something we had all Republicans met yesterday. We had a 1-hour meeting on this issue alone. We're trying to figure out exactly what is best to protect Americans' privacy rights, their fundamental freedoms. The sooner we get that report, I think that's helpful information, the better. Any idea again?
We're aiming for this summer.
Sooner the better. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back. And again, I thank the chairman for putting this hearing together.
I thank you, Mr. Chairman.